Hello and welcome to the Mind Your Career webinar series. My name is Adam Sylvain and I work with the Alumni Career Programs team here at the University of Chicago in Hyde Park. I'm delighted to welcome you to our webinar titled 5 Leadership Lessons for Women in Business. Today we will hear from two-time Maroon alumna Katerina Steele, as well as Esther Pandian-Risky and Mitchell Catalano with the University of Chicago's Graham School, who will briefly discuss the graduate student at large and graduate student at large business programs. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to cede the floor to Katerina.
Thank you so much. All right, so we should have, it looks like we've got some video and you should all be able to see my screen. So we'll go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 leadership lessons for women in business. My name is Katerina Steele, and I graduated from the University of Chicago in 2003. I had a concentration in music, a good practical University of Chicago degree. And in 2016, I earned my MBA from the Booth School of Business. I concentrated in econometrics and statistics, as well as entrepreneurship. And for the past 14 years, I've been building brands, including many billion-dollar healthcare brands and franchises in the healthcare sector. My experience spans marketing communications, business development, and market research. What are we going to be doing today? Well, our objective is to help you recognize the 5 unique challenges that women face today in business and give you 5 things that you can start doing right now in order to overcome them and grow as a leader. So today's landscape is a unique one when it comes to women in business. And we've all heard the statistics, right? Women make up less than 5% of CEOs, right? So less than 1 person in 10. And when you start going down the ladder, the numbers get a little bit better. If you look at senior leaders in a company as a whole, about 2 in 10 are women. But here's where we start to get the good news. Things are changing, and we are poised to be the ones that change them. See, young women represent a larger proportion of college grads entering the workplace than ever before. In fact, nearly 6 out of 10 people who are towards the beginning of their career, so millennials, are women. So we outnumber the guys at the millennial age group. What that means is that when a young businesswoman is looking around the office and looking at her peers, she's likely to see a lot of women like herself. But when she looks up the ladder and she's looking at leadership and all the way up to the CEO, she's going to see that that path is not as well trodden as maybe she would expect. Okay, so that leaves today's businesswomen with a challenge. The good news, right, is that being a woman in business is not unusual anymore. Okay, and that's awesome. But it also means that as businesswomen, we often need to work harder to stand out from the crowd. And even though there's many women in business, there are still a lot of unwritten assumptions about how women should behave in business or what we are or are not capable of. And so we need to push past that to find our own identities without falling into the trap of letting others define us. Okay. And because most companies don't have a C-suite dominated by women, we need to forge a path to the top without clear guides or a tried and true map. If only there were one thing we could do that would solve all of these problems for us. Well, there is. It's called personal branding. It means build the brand of you. Because if you don't define yourself, others are going to do it for you. And I know this firsthand. When I was in my first year in business, my new hire class, I was the only person with my hair color. And I had somebody come up to me and say, "Oh gosh, you are so lucky to be the only person who's blonde in your new hire class, because now everyone will have no problem recognizing you and knowing who you are." Who wants to be known by their hair color? Like, that's not how you build an identity in business. But the good news is you can shape the reputation that you earn. You can shape it to reflect who you are and where you want to go. And here is why branding matters. Brands stand out from the competition. We are willing to pay more of our money to brands that we love And we are willing to fight harder to work with brands that we love. Okay? And if any of this you're skeptical of, just talk to somebody with an iPhone and they will explain to you why they totally didn't overpay for that little bundle of technology that they have in their pocket. So whether you're a product or a person building a career, you want to be a brand, not a commodity. Okay. Branding, if you're not in marketing, and there's a lot of science that goes into branding, but if you're not familiar with that, talk of being a personal brand, talk of branding can start to feel like jargon. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page about what we mean by a brand. What does a brand encompass? Okay, at its most basic level, a brand includes who you are and what you stand for. It includes how you communicate it verbally, and it includes how you project it visually. I could talk for hours on this topic, but we only have so much time. So we're going to focus on the most important component, which is who you are, okay? And we're not talking about like a product like Apple. We're talking about you. And today, we are going to be writing your brand's mission statement. So if you don't have paper and pen in front of you, I highly encourage you to grab one over the next 5-10 minutes. You have it ready when we get there. If this discussion of a personal brand is something that's interesting to you, we're not going to have time to go into it in too much detail, but there's some great reading out there. In fact, there's an entire subgenre of business books you can find on Amazon that address this. But a really good starting place is Career Distinction by William Arruda. Okay. But for now, let's dive into our 5 leadership lessons. Okay. Number 1, own your words, because your words matter. They matter to how others perceive you and to how you perceive yourself. I want to talk to you guys about the language gap, because I think this is really important. Young professional women, we often speak to each other in a non-confrontational code. It's kind of designed to reduce the threat we present to others. And we're not really conscious of doing this, right? But we say things, if we think that there's something wrong in someone's presentation, we don't call them out for it. We might say something like, I'm sure it's just because I'm so new to the team, but what you're suggesting, it just doesn't seem to add up to me, right? When we ask a question in a meeting, we don't just ask our question, we say, I'm so sorry for asking, but is any of this sounding familiar? What about when we have an idea, we say, this is crazy, but what if we fill in the blank, right? We use these vocal tics, right, to undermine the things that we're saying, to second guess ourselves in front of everybody, and to cushion what it is that we're saying. And it's not an entirely terrible thing that we do this, because when we're talking to other people who understand this code, right, other young professional women, it can make a more supportive and collaborative environment. So you can give constructive feedback to one of your colleagues, and they don't feel threatened or hurt by it. They're able to hear it and absorb it and grow, and that's cool. The only problem is that there's other people in the office besides our other more junior peers. And these are people who don't speak that language. So when we talk in this way, they don't understand that it's code. They just listen to our words. And it can make you sound weak to those people who don't understand the code. And those people are senior level business people of all genders. If you're at a senior level, you are done with these sorts of this language that undermines yourself. Okay, you don't get to be CEO if that's how you talk. But there's another important group that does not speak this code, and that's most guys, right, across all business levels. So you can see where this kind of language gives other people permission to not listen to what we have to say, and that's problematic. But it is not the most toxic thing about this kind of language. It can make us doubt ourselves. We start saying, I'm sorry for asking, and we start feeling sorry about asking. It's a problem. And it's a big problem because words build your brand. So you want to use the right kinds of words. When you advocate for your ideas, which you absolutely should, you need to speak confidently. Don't preface your idea with anything that's going to suggest that you're anything but confident in your own idea and your own capabilities. When you ask a question, especially in a meeting, again, don't preface it. Just ask your question. Listen to other people in meetings, right? Senior level folks will ask very fundamental questions, and they sound profound, often because they are, but also because they're not prefacing what might be an otherwise stupid question with, this might be a stupid question, but they just ask. The guys, they just ask their question. Okay, easy thing to start doing today. There's another really, really important one that I think we don't think enough about. When you do a favor for somebody and they say thank you, accept those thanks. And I know what you're thinking right now. Katerina, I'm a polite person. Of course I accept their thanks. Do you though? Or do you say, oh, no worries. Don't worry about it. No big deal. It's cool. Okay? When you say something like that, don't worry about it. Here's the exchange that just happened. You gave your time and your energy and your work product to somebody else. And they put a value on that. They valued it and said, thank you. They gave you gratitude in return. And what did you do? You said, that value you put on what I did, that's too high. It was nothing. What I did was nothing, right? Don't worry about it. It's not worth thanking me for that thing I did. You are devaluing your own efforts when you say no worries. So instead, just say, you're welcome. Or, even better, say, you're welcome. I know you would do the same for me. Because not only does that accept the thanks that somebody else gave you for your time and energy, but you're encouraging that bond of reciprocity and strengthening the relationship with that person you did a favor for. Don't undervalue yourself through the words you use. Speaking of which, here's the big one, the one that we all constantly do. Don't say sorry. Just never say it. Take it out of your vocabulary. Certainly, if you really screw something up, you can apologize, right? But just don't let sorry creep into your vocabulary. I hope you guys are writing these down because these are very easy to implement and will make a very big difference. Number 2. Don't label yourself by your weaknesses. I hear this a lot, and it breaks my heart every time. Oh, I'm just not a fill-in-the-blank person. When you do that, it means missed opportunities. Negative branding, which is what you're doing when you define what you're not, it builds a cage for you with your own words. The reason we say things like this, I'm not a fill-in-the-blank, is because it helps protect ourselves from failure. Right? We're scared that we're not good at something, and so we just decide that that's not us. Okay? I'm not a people person. I'm not a spreadsheet person. I'm just not good at computers. We say these things, and it makes us feel a little safer around our weaknesses, but it also closes off opportunities, right? One problem is that it becomes your brand to other people. Okay? If you are not a spreadsheet person, then managers are going to skip you for opportunities that require those skills, in this case, a spreadsheet. And, a lot of leadership opportunities are going to require that capability, right? So don't close that door off and then wonder why you're not being tapped for things. Don't let these words get in your way. But the most toxic thing about falling into this trap is that it becomes your branding to yourself. You genuinely believe you're not a people person, that you think that's something you're not good at, and so you don't try. It keeps you from growing. It keeps you from developing those new skills. It keeps you from discovering new passions and just generally becoming the best version of yourself. Slide number 2, when I gave a little bit of information about myself, I made a point to tell you what my concentrations were when I was in undergrad and in business school. As an undergrad, I studied music. And, obviously our core curriculum at the college puts so much emphasis on the ability to write and communicate. And I actually got through without any real rigorous math courses. And after a while, I kind of began to think that I wasn't a very mathy person. And that is so sad because I found out many years later, a decade later, that I freaking love math. I love statistics. I am geeked about it, kind of in a super nerdy way. If I could have gotten a concentration in machine learning, if that existed at Booth, I took so many courses I'd probably have it. I am jazzed about finding insights in quantitative data by using statistical techniques. Rocks my world. And I was deprived of this thing that I didn't even know that I loved because I thought I wasn't mathy. So don't fall into that trap. Instead, be dauntless. Face what you fear by learning about it on your own time when you're comfortable. The internet is full of opportunities. Microsoft training modules are certainly available online, probably available through wherever you work. YouTube is an incredible resource, but just Google things, and you will be able to find a way to learn about whatever that thing is in a way that you can do it at your own pace comfortably. Another thing you can do is find someone who does that thing that you can't and ask them for feed forward. Feedback is when you've done something and you ask for some kind of constructive reaction or suggestions to improve, on what you just did. Feed forward is something you haven't done yet and you want to know about how you go about doing it. It could be an incredible resource for growing a new skill. And finally, don't underestimate the value of formalized training. People think about, what you need to learn if it's an advanced degree or certification, and it can really make you a well-rounded person. Which brings me to a very important question. Are you a business school person? So for some of you guys who are listening to this, there's a little voice inside you. You see this question on the screen, and you get excited. And that little voice says, yes, 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 I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I am totally a business school person. But there's probably at least as many of you listening, and you just sort of feel the bottom of your stomach drop out, and you feel this little insecurity creep in. Maybe I'm not a business school person. Okay? So to those of you that are questioning it, I want you to be careful about falling into a trap, because we know that men and women default to a different sense of self-identity about whether they're the kind of person who's going to get an MBA. A lot of dudes just assume that's going to happen. And a lot of women that I talk to haven't really ever thought that that could be them. So I'm hoping that if you're on this call, you're somebody who's considering it. But if there's any doubt in your mind that you're a business school person, the best thing you can do is just put your butt in a B school class and see how it feels. In fact, if you can't picture yourself in a B school class, just go to one, take a selfie. And then you'll have no challenges. And it sounds like I'm being glib, and it sounds like this is just a pie in the sky thing. But the truth of the matter is, there's an incredible program that the University of Chicago has through the Graham School. Before you apply or do any of the steps in an application to go to business school, you can take a class at the #1 business school in the nation, Booth. And you do that through the GSALB program. It's called the Graduate Student at Large in Business program. And Esther is going to talk about it a little bit later. But if you're having any doubts about whether this is right for you, the best thing to do is to try it. It's what I did. Because the thing that was holding me back for a while wasn't the logistics. It wasn't, the workload. It was just believing that that was me. And that was something that I could do. And being able to take classes through the GSALB wiped all the doubt out of my mind, because you have this image of business school people as, you have some image of them, but then when you're in class with them and you're sitting shoulder to shoulder, and you realize you're one of them, that's profound. Okay? One other thought, and this is real talk, the GMATs are terrifying to a lot of people. They were to me. They have this way of just ripping the mask off of our deepest insecurities, the things that were hard in 3rd grade, arithmetic, grammar, just standardized tests in general, and it can you can get hung up on it. I'm just here to tell you that once you start working towards it, you just decide you're going to do it and start studying, it's not all that hard, right? We all got into college. We've done it before. You can do it again. You got this. It's not that hard, right? Do not let your GMAT get in the way of a dream. It's not that bad. For number 3, you need to know your strengths and play to them. What I mean by that is you need to find your special sauce. Look, don't try to be something you're not. This is really important. I know I said you need to make sure you don't have any gaps or weaknesses and then fail to work on those. You need to fill in any missing skills that you have. But if you only focus on shoring up your weaknesses, you can fall into a trap of feeling inadequate. Self-doubt creeps in. You're spending all this time and energy focusing on areas where your rate of return for that invested time is low because it doesn't come naturally to you. Meanwhile, you're neglecting developing your greatest strengths, the things that often come very easily to you. And that's a problem because the best brands have a special sauce, secret herbs and spices, the thing that makes them unique and uniquely effective. And you don't want to neglect developing and mastering whatever makes you uniquely effective. So this is my advice to you. Know what makes you, you, and then rock it. This is probably the hardest to do I'm going to give you. Recognize what you're good at. Genuinely know what your strengths are. It's kind of terrifying to get a blank piece of paper and have to make a list of stuff that you're good at. But you should. Write it down. Be honest with yourself. You don't have to show it to anybody else if you don't want to. But do that exercise. And another really good tool is ask friends, because it's so often we discount or underestimate the things that come so effortlessly to us, that are just part of the fabric of who we are. But our friends appreciate that about us, and you can learn a lot by talking to friends. Number 2, focus on self-awareness. Self-awareness is an incredible skill, okay, which you should absolutely develop. And you can use it to learn how to harness your strengths by doing after-action reviews. After a project, maybe it could be a success, maybe it could be a misstep, doesn't matter, do it in either case. Carve 10 minutes out of your day, write down 3 things that went well, 3 things you did well, and write down 3 things you could do better. So simple. But you're going to notice patterns, and you're going to notice what your strengths are and how you can leverage them. And finally, pick a goal to achieve that plays to your strengths, and then work towards it. And that's how you can make sure that you're always exercising your strengths. For me, it was B-School. It could be something else for you guys. Okay. So number 4 is one that I think we need to be talking more about. And I call it Don't Be Cinderella. If you think about the movie Cinderella, the evil stepmother says to Cinderella, of course you can go to the ball if you get your work done. Okay, well, we don't have a fairy godmother, so you need to plan ahead, because if you just spend all your time doing busy work, you're not going to automatically get a ticket to the ball. Okay, let me be a little more concrete. Here's what I mean. Busy work is a trap. Not only does it stink up your day, it can stall out your career. There's this invisible ceiling that comes with moving from sort of a worker bee role to a leadership role. This isn't the same thing as the glass ceiling, we talk about from a gender perspective, so it could play a factor in it. This is something else, okay? This is when you're moving from a role where you're often an individual contributor to a role where you're being more strategic, you're more of a leader. It often coincides with managing others, but it might not. It's a different title at each company. It could be when you make director, it could be when you make partner. You probably know what it is at your company, right? If not, be on the lookout for it, okay? But there's a point where certain people just never make it to the next level. And I think that there's an important reason that factors into that. Administrative and project management skills are absolutely critical to being good at business, right? And they are going to help you move up. Initially, your first however many promotions are often going to be predicated on how well you get things done. Your project management skills are going to be important. Your administrative skills are going to be important. Do you have your poop in a pile? That is really, really, really critical. But when that's all you're focusing on, it can start to hold you back. can become busy work. These are skills you have to have, but they are not necessarily the workload that needs to dominate your to-do list. These things can keep you too busy to do what you need to do to add value to the company, right? When you add value to the company, you are getting ahead in your career. I'm talking about things like strategy and big picture thinking. Stuff's critical to be doing. So here's what you do to avoid this trap. I should probably mention, too often nobody explains this, and women are looking at all that they do, and they're accomplishing so much, and they're running, a huge workload, but they're still getting passed over for a promotion by somebody else, regardless of gender, who is seems like maybe they're doing less work or they're less organized, and they don't understand. I'm doing everything I've been asked to do correctly. Why am I getting passed over? And part of it is you're not carving out this time for more than busy work. So what you do is you need to stay interesting. If you're not already doing it, get yourself a reading list. Start listening to podcasts, things about business, things about your industry that are going to broaden your horizons and change how you view the work that you're doing. Fit it into a bigger picture. Bring a new perspective. You need to learn to say no. This is the most important thing that you can say in your career is no at the right time. Don't take on extra work if you don't have time to deliver on the so what of the project, because that's where you add value. That's what gets you to the next level. Go back to school. Certifications, degrees, formal coursework, these can be incredibly valuable. I genuinely believe nobody gets promoted because they have an MBA on their business card. They get promoted because of the skills and perspectives and frameworks that they gained in earning their MBA. So for me, being able to have a degree from Booth has opened up really big horizons for me, and it's been incredibly valuable. Could be something else for you. I don't know, what the right thing is for your career. But don't underestimate going back to school. And number 5, know who you champion. Women are most powerful, and society permits us to wield that power best when we're championing other people. For being honest, there are cultural limitations that we face as women. Being assertive, it can be tricky, right? Especially in certain corporate cultures. So you have to go about it the right way. There are labels, being perceived as bossy, being perceived as selfish when you speak up. There are negative labels that we get that the boys don't get for the exact same behaviors. And worst of all, and I see this, as women, we often convince ourselves that we don't really need, deserve, or require something, and so we don't even ask for it in the first place. We can make up excuses for why we don't need to advocate for something, advocate for ourselves. So here's how you learn to advocate for yourself. You learn to be fierce for others. Even those of us who are perhaps the most shy, I guarantee each of you has an experience where you were fierce in order to defend a friend or a sister or someone in need. You need to harness that fierceness and advocate for yourself. Okay. Knowing who you're advocating for means that when you're in business, you don't need to pull your punches. If when I said, speak up in a meeting, ask your question, advocate for your ideas, and don't undercut it, if that felt impossible to you, then this is when you should really think a lot about. Because when you're speaking up, not on behalf of just yourself, but when you're speaking up on behalf of the team or the project or the company, it empowers you to say things and be more bold. And this is a really valuable ask. Other than maybe, your first 1 or 2 positions out of college, those entry-level positions, there's always an expectation that you're going to negotiate for some aspect of that compensation package. It might not just be salary, it could be vacation days, it could be a work-from-home day, it could be something that's in that package. Don't ever just blindly accept exactly what they give you without at least asking for something else. So the next time you're negotiating, I want you to promise me that you'll ask for something more. something you deserve, and you need to do your homework. You need to know why it's appropriate for you to receive it, why you deserve it, and you also need to know why you're asking for it. If you're asking for a couple more vacation days, your seniority determines that that's appropriate, and also having that vacation time will allow you to go to your child's sports games, and that's something that you want to be there for your child as the mother. Or maybe the additional salary will allow you to pursue some education, and being more educated will allow you to add more value to the team. These are the sorts of things that, even if they don't necessarily get spoken, and maybe they do, but at least you know, and it allows you to be more fierce when you're advocating. Professionally, of course. So I kind of want to wrap things up here by writing your brand identity statement. So get that pen out, get that paper ready. We're going to talk through this. We have these 5 lessons that we've learned. Own your words. Don't label yourself by your weaknesses. Know your strengths and play to them. Don't be Cinderella. And know who you champion. And we're going to bring those together in a way that allows us to really encapsulate what each of us stands for as a businesswoman. That's your brand identity statement. Okay? And we're going to start with some fill in the blanks. It's like Mad Libs. Okay? So I want you to write this. I own my ideas. So I never reflexively blank. If you know what you want to write there, you can do that now. Otherwise, you can just leave that blank. This is where I want you to write that thing that you say or that thing that you do that undercuts you in your own words. So maybe it's saying sorry. For me, it's saying no worries after somebody says thank you. Maybe it's kind of undercutting yourself whenever you ask a question in a meeting. Whatever that is, I want you to write that down. Next sentence. People know that I'm going to make an impact on this industry because over and above my job description, I fill in the blank. This is where you're going to write down that thing that you do that helps you stay interesting. Okay. Maybe you don't know what it is yet. Maybe you want to think about which of the many things that you do deserves to be in that fill in the blank. You don't have to decide right now, but I want you to fill it out at some point soon. And then we're going to keep moving. I am growing my blank skill, but I don't let it define me. This is the thing where you might be tempted to say, I'm not a fill-in-the-blank person, but instead you're going to phrase it this way. I'm growing that skill, but I don't let it define me. What's that thing you're working on? Okay. Instead, I am blank and blank and blank. These are your strengths. And I want you to write down 3 of them. We did 1 weakness, but I want you to put down 3 strengths. It's maybe the hardest thing to fill out. Okay, so you don't have to do it right now, but I want you to leave a space and come back to it once you've decided what you think the 3 biggest strengths of yours are. And finally, I won't accept anything less than I or my ideas are due because I am fighting for blank. This is who you champion. This is what empowers you to advocate. So to kind of give you an example of how this might play out, and just because we're having such a great conversation, I'm going to share with you my brand identity statement. I own my ideas, so I never reflexively say no worries when people say thank you. And people know that I'm going to make an impact on this industry because over and above my job description, I'm active in the HBA, which is a professional association in my industry. I am growing my active listening skill, but I don't let it define me. And instead, I am analytical and innovative and inspiring. And I won't accept anything less than my ideas are due because I am fighting for my customers. In my case, that's patients with a life-threatening condition and the physicians who treat them. So that's something that makes me very passionate when I advocate. Okay. So this has been a really wonderful opportunity for me to share some things that I care very much about, and I hope that you've learned some things that you can begin to apply now as well. So I'm going to say thank you, and Esther, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hello, Katerina, and hello, everyone. I am Esther Risky, and along with my wonderful colleague Mitchell Catalano, we would like to say hello. And first of all, we'd like to thank Katerina. And indeed, Katerina, you are inspiring. And I can see why that plays into your brand statement, because you really are inspiring. So thank you so much for being a part of this afternoon's webinar. So as Katerina talked about sort of professional development and taking some courses, Katerina was one of our graduate student at large business students. And that is a program that Mitchell and I run here at the University of Chicago. And just so you know that this is a possibility as an alum of the university, you may certainly consider enrolling in our GSALB program or the sister program, which is the GSAL program, which is when you take courses in any subject or field or professional school here on campus other than the business school. Here for the GSALB, it's really specific to the Chicago Booth School. So really, we'd like to very quickly go through the GSALB program so that you will know of its existence, and you'll also know how easy it is to really get more information, and then you can enroll in any of the 4 quarters. And what really ends at the end is that you get a transcript from the University of Chicago with the course that you took. And let's just say you did very well and you really were inspired to consider the MBA program. You can then apply to Chicago Booth, and the courses that you took through us at GSALB will definitely transfer directly into the program when you are granted admission. The same thing for GSAL, which is what we'd like to consider the sister program, is when you take courses in every other division or program or professional school at the university to actually explore or to enhance your own knowledge, whether it's going to be in law, political science, international relations, if it's a language you want to really be trained in, any of the other fields of study. And that will result in a transcript from the University of Chicago as well. So Mitchell, would you like to add anything to this slide?
Sure. First of all, I'd just like to thank Katerina again for her wealth of knowledge, her experience, her willingness to share that with all of us today. And I would like to say that it's the GSLB program that provided that to her, but it would be dishonest advertising in that way, but to say that she is an incredible leader, and we were very lucky to have her as part of the program, and are very lucky to have students like her participate in the GSLB program time and time again. And I also believe that part of the reason that GSLB is Graduate Student Launch Business Program is such a benefit to folks like yourself is that you also get to experience the academic environment of the University of Chicago, which Katerina was able to do on 2 different opportunities. And that environment is fueled by the Chicago approach. It's a very distinct philosophy that we hold here at the University of Chicago that is employed by the Booth School as well. And it's a holistic sort of philosophy. All courses throughout the university, and particularly at Booth, are broken down into subcomponents of mathematics, statistics, psychology, law, sociology, economics, just a wealth of different fields that go into the larger body of studies that you will be looking into as a GSLB student, also the same for GSL students. So it's a really awesome opportunity to get that experience in the business world, get that step forward to get to an MBA, but also to really immerse yourself in a highly, highly respected academic environment here at the University of Chicago. There might be different reasons that you're interested in the Graduate Student Large Business Program. We've had students from a wealth of different backgrounds, not necessarily coming from the business field. We've had folks from advertising fields. We've had folks from industry. We've had folks from medical field and other things. And the basic thing that ties all the prospects that we have in this program is that they're looking to enhance their academic record in some way, whether that's to use this program in conjunction with a GPA that wasn't as good as they had hoped from their undergraduate degree, to therefore to then apply to business schools afterwards, or folks who are looking to take a first step into the Booth School of Business to create some relationships with faculty members to use towards an application, or folks who are already in the scholarship area of business and want to get involved with what Booth is doing in that way. This really is an opportunity that is open to anyone for pretty much in any circumstance. And we really speak with you one-on-one directly, determine what it is about the Booth program that's going to help you most, the GSLB program, and kind of move you forward in that experience from there. So that's kind of a few things that I wanted to include about the what and why of our program. So
I believe we have one more slide.
We do indeed.
Yes. I believe Katerina, there we go. And so really, I mean, this is just something for you to keep in your back pocket. Just so you know, now all of you are members of the alumni community. So you know we run on quarters. And so for us, the winter quarter is when we are thinking about next. And that's really when it starts January 1st, January 2nd, and it goes on till March. And that's the winter quarter. And application deadlines are November 15th, and then we have the spring quarter after that. Really, at this point, it means having a conversation with Mitchell and having a conversation with me. You know, I did 2 graduate degrees here at the University of Chicago, the maths degree as well as the Harris Public Policy degree. So I myself know what it's like to sort of work and take courses at the same time, sort of part-time, and how that plays out. But also how important it is to think about oneself while we are sort of working and moving up the professional ladder. But it's always, you know, as Katerina so beautifully explained, it's always to remember who you are and how relevant you feel and how relevant you are to the industry. And so it means that you think about yourself and put yourself first to say, how can I improve myself, feel better, feel more confident? And if it does mean sort of starting with that initial conversation with Mitchell and with me about, here's what I'm doing, I've done this for 1 year, or I'm thinking about this, you know, I'm thinking about law, I'm thinking about public policy, or I am thinking about something in business. It's that initial conversation, and that's what we are here for. It may sort of be that you just want to have a conversation to sort of carve out what you're thinking for yourself. That may result in you doing something 6 months down the road or 6 years down the road. So, but the important thing is the conversation. So really, just in terms of courses, each class at GSALB, as you can see by the course amount, and you also have, just so you know, the graduate student at large tuition is less. It's really half. It's $3,275 per class, and those are for courses anywhere other than the Booth School of Business. And these are the additional requirements that students need to do. But of course, all of this would be sort of, you know, based on our conversation that we have with you. So I'm wondering, do we have another slide?
I think that's the last slide that
yes.
we have.
So it's important, and we will follow up for sure and give you our information on how you may contact Mitchell and you may contact me. Our website is online, the Graduate Student at Large program, Graduate Student at Large Business program. Please read, you know, stories of students just like Katerina across a whole wealth of areas and industries and how these programs have helped them. So thank you again, and it's wonderful to have reached you if you manage to offer this time during your lunch hour, wherever you may be in this world. So we just want to say again, thank you, and we hope this is the beginning of many conversations. So back to you, Katerina.
And Katerina, I'm happy to, at this point, moderate a brief Q&A before we finish our hour. So a few questions for you. What can you share about the role of mentorship and maybe ways in which you've experienced that, or ways that someone might seek an effective mentor?
That's a great question. I think that I will say this, so there's probably people on this call who are at different stages in their careers. And I would say in some ways you learn as much being a mentor as you receive mentoring. I think it's a wonderful way to sort of practice your leadership skills, your management skills. I would recommend finding somebody who is similar to you in fundamental ways, but different than you in ways that you want to grow. And then ask them. Ask them if they're open to giving you feedback. Ask them if they're open to mentorship. Some companies have a little bit more formal framework. Some companies don't, a little bit more informal, but set up regular meetings with that person. If it's your manager, fantastic, but it might be somebody in a totally different department or even in a different industry. And just set up time on a regular basis to pick their brain. If the person that you want to work with has a formal framework they're going to bring to the table, awesome. Otherwise, it's really up to you. Come to every single meeting. If you can get a regular half hour on the calendar of somebody you admire, that is so cool. But come to those meetings knowing what you want to talk about. Maybe it's something that happened in the last week for you or month, right, that you want to talk through. Hey, I did this after action review, and these are the 3 things that I thought went well. Here's the 3 things that I want to work on. Do you agree that those are the right things? And how do I go about working on them? How do I grow that? Mentors can be an incredible resource for that. But you really need to be the one that has the impetus. It's rare for somebody to track you down and then, pin you into becoming their mentee. You have to look for it, and that's really the first step. And I will say that people aren't offended when you ask if they will be your mentor. They're usually tickled, and it's something people are delighted to do.
Great, thank you. Next question. I know you shared a little bit about this in your presentation, but I'm wondering if you could share a bit more about kind of the main obstacles that you faced in deciding whether business school was for you, and how specifically the GSALB experience, what specifically from that experience helped you overcome whatever those obstacles were?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess the short version of that is I was lucky enough to be in an industry, marketing, where the MBA is not required. Like there are some industries, maybe consulting, where if you don't have an MBA, you're just never going to make a certain level, or you have to be a special exception to make it to a certain level. And so I had the choice. And it seemed like a lot of time and energy, and frankly, money to invest in something that I wasn't really sure was going to be the right fit for me. I didn't know if I was a business school person. And the thing that changed my mind more than anything else was seeing how other people grew as leaders by going through it. And seeing how, when I got a little taste of it through the GSALB program, seeing how I started to change. And I realized how much more I would get out of that if I committed and actually went into the program. So for that, I'm incredibly grateful to the GSALB, and Esther is a wonderful, wonderful resource. But I think it was just seeing the potential for growth and getting a taste of it that changed my mind.
Great, thanks. I think we have time for one final question. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the importance, or whether it's something you'd recommend to talk openly with managers about career goals and leadership opportunities, particularly if maybe somebody who's stuck in that busy work rut and might not know what the best opportunities are for them to demonstrate more value within their organization. Is there a particular conversation or type of conversation with a manager or supervisor that might help?
Yeah, wow, absolutely. If you're in a position where you feel like you're in a rut, you definitely need to have a conversation. And I certainly hope that you have like a manager who's going to be able to be really responsive to that. The wrong time to have a conversation about what you want out of your career is in your exit interview, right? When you've given up on that company. People want you to be happy and they want you to be successful and they want you to add the maximum amount of value to the company. So definitely have that conversation. The way to approach it, though, I think, is to say, here's what I want to grow. Here's what I want to be bringing to the table. And here's what stands between me and bringing it to the table. Or, I see that other people do this project and they have the opportunity to, present a summary of insights about the implications of this project, whereas I'm just moving on to the next one. Can I do something similar? What would that entail? Is there something I need to learn or grow in order to be able to kind of take on some of these more strategic thinking projects? And I think if you go in and say, why aren't I promoted yet? Give me a promotion. That doesn't usually go over well. If you go in and say, these are the skills I think I need to work on. How can you help me grow there? Or is there something else you recommend I work on instead to get to the next level? Those are typically very fruitful conversations and ones where you learn a lot about yourself and ways that you can focus your energies to grow.
Great. Thank you so much, Katerina. Thank you for your responses to those questions as well as for your presentation. I also want to thank Esther and Mitchell for sharing information about the Graham School's GSAL and GSALB programs and how they can assist in this career development process. I hope everyone on call will join us again next week for some more programming to help build your career on Tuesday, October 23rd. You can join us for a webinar titled Mind Your P's and Q's, 13 Principles and Questions to Guide Your Career and Discover Ways to Evolve Your Career Over Your Lifetime. Also, a quick plug for Career Month, which you may have already received some communication about. On October 31st, an entire month of alumni career programs will debut. This is throughout the month of November. Please visit the events page on careers.uchicagoalumni.org for the full lineup of events taking place throughout the month of November. Take care, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.